Hello and welcome back to another video. So this video, as you can probably tell by the title, is on my favourite racing games that are playable on the Xbox, specifically the Xbox One. Most of these games are playable on other platforms, the PlayStation, PC and things, but there's a couple of exclusives, a rarity for Xbox I know, but they're all playable through the Xbox Series X via backwards compatibility. So these are all games that I think are worth a play. Even though they're all racing games, there's quite a broad range of genres within there. So from your sim to your arcades to your combat racing, or kind of a broad spectrum. So there should be something for everyone, unless you completely dislike racing games full stop. There's a few of the kind of better known ones in there, but I think I've put quite a few in that are hopefully kind of hidden gems for some people, some that aren't mentioned that often at all. And I've also made it so there's only one game from a particular series. So for example, a bit of a spoiler, but it's quite obvious. So for the Forza games, I've only put one Forza Horizon. It's not like the top 6 is going to be Forza Horizon. So there'll be a lot of variety in there as we go through. So, without further ado, let's get started. So first up, we have quite a niche game. So I've got 15 games to go through. They're in a slight order, but a lot of these could be moved around all over the place. It's not kind of set in stone. But yeah, the first up, a bit of a niche one, is the Grand Tour, the game. So for those that don't know, this is from the guys that originally did Top Gear, before it changed hands, before Jeremy Clarkson got fired, and then they moved to Amazon and set up the Grand Tour. So I would say, to caveat before I go into any more detail, I wouldn't play this game unless you are a fan of the Grand Tour or those three presenters, because it's very much based around the series. So the way the game works is you will play through an episode of the TV series, and so you'll see video footage, you'll actually be watching snippets of the episode, and then at the bits in the episode where they would be driving, you are driving in the game. So I love this just because I'm a huge fan of the show, and it's just fun to play through, and you can kind of do the time trials in the different cars on the Ebola circuit, their kind of test track, and you go on around the world, all their adventures and things, and you get to drive through them. So I will say that the physics of the actual driving they're not great. They're not the selling point of this game, but they're passable, and you get used to it. It's the kind of game when if you've been playing Forza or something and you jump into this, the start of it's quite jarring. It's not the best driving physics I've ever played by a long way, but once you get used to it, and after kind of 30 minutes, an hour or so playing the game, you've kind of settled into it. But I would definitely say one for fans of the series. And if you are a fan of the series and you haven't played this, then I'd say it's definitely worth picking up. There's the whole of series, I can't remember which series it is, series 2 or series 3, but there's a whole series, every single episode to play through, and then there's a couple of bonus episodes from other series. So yeah, definitely worth picking up. Next up, we have an arcade game, and that is Riptide GP2. So this is a fairly modern day, jet ski racer. So it reminds me very much of Wave Race back on the N64, which is a game I had and spent countless hours playing. So it's that kind of game. You're always on water, or you'll see gameplay as well. But it's just a very capable arcade racer. The racing is tight, the controls are pretty tight, the steering and everything feels good. The kind of play of it is that you perform tricks as you're going through, when you're going over jumps or just taking off on the waves, and that will build up your boost, which you can then use to obviously boost and kind of stay competitive in the race. There's plenty of tracks to go through. I think nearly all the tracks are kind of interesting and fun to race on, and there's a decent variety of events as well. So you've got straight up races, and then you've got eliminator races, which are my favourite actually, because they get quite intense. So every 30 seconds or so, whoever's in last place will get eliminated, and as you can imagine, it leads to some quite tense moments where there's 3 of you left and you're kind of neck and neck, and you've got to time your boost right to make sure you're not eliminated. There's a lot of events. There's a long single player campaign to play through. You unlock new, I can't remember what they actually call them, but we'll just call them jet skis. They have a different name for them. Yeah, I really enjoyed this game. I'll only 100% a game if I'm really enjoying it, and I 100% of this game, got all of the gamer score, did everything I could in the game, and yeah, really enjoyed my time with it. Next up we have what I think is a very underrated game, and that is The Crew 2. So The Crew 1 I tried to get into, but they went very, very, very heavily down that kind of thing of it's the crew, so you're an online crew, and if you were looking to play offline like I was, it really didn't have much to offer. The Crew 2, they remedied that, so it's still got all the online elements and you can drive around in a crew and things if you want, but it's got a beefy, kind of well fleshed out single player experience. Again, the physics of the driving, they're not as bad as the Grand Tour, but they're not on the level of kind of Forza or something, but they're decent, they're good enough to play through. I didn't have, that was kind of when I first started playing it, the only thing I was thinking that could be improved quite a bit, but it's certainly playable. But the great thing about it is the map is obviously not a one-to-one scale, but it's the entirety of the USA. So there's races later in the game, kind of like the finale races, where you'll literally race from coast to coast, and it will take kind of 45 minutes to an hour kind of thing, depending on what car you're using and how good you are at driving. And you go through all the kind of iconic areas of the USA and the main cities and things. And I really enjoyed that. I love kind of big, huge maps where you can go to real world locations, and driving through kind of the scenic areas of national parks and things. You can drive like through Yosemite and things, and all of those kind of drive through the desert and all of these kind of cool places. It's got a decent variety of cars, and the variety of vehicles you can drive aside from cars is really good. So it's got boat racing, it's got all kinds of things like monster truck racing and destruction derby, and I'm pretty sure it's got planes in it. It's got like F1 cars in it. It's got just a huge range of vehicles and events that you can take part in. And yeah, just really enjoyed it. Whenever you get bored of one event, you can jump into the other one and kind of work your way through. And yeah, I played all the way through. I didn't 100% it because it's quite a grind, but I did all of the single player, like the main single player events. And I definitely recommend it if it's one you've looked at and you were put off by The Crew 1. And I don't think this reviewed very well either. But I think it's one that's worth a go if you like that variety in your gaming, like in terms of events you're doing, and you love kind of big, large maps to explore. I think it's definitely worth picking up. Right, next up, some of you are going to laugh at the footage of this, but I assure you, well, I had a great time with this game, and that is, just looking at the name to remember, it's Super Night Riders. So, as you can see by the footage, it looks very basic. Well, it is very basic. It looks like it was made in Flash, which it may well have been. I have no idea. It's a very simple game, but this may be more nostalgia speaking than anything. But I had a game on the SNES called, what was it called? Lamborghini something. You're racing Lamborghinis anyway. And it was like this, and you had your Lamborghini and you moved from side to side on the road, and that was all you could do. And if you crashed, you got slowed down. And I loved that game. I spent so long, and I never beat it as a kid. But last year, I revisited it and I emulated it on my Ambernick, and I played through and completed it for the first time ever. And it was so nostalgic playing through it. I loved it. And then this game, I was just in the mood for playing some kind of random cheap little arcade races, so I just searched on the Xbox store for racing games, and this came up, and it was like, I can't remember how much, but like a couple of quid. And I was like, yeah, why not give it a go? And it's very simple. You just move left or right and avoid the bikes, and you've got to get to checkpoints before the time runs out. But it became so addictive, and it's one of those games where I just got in the zone. It's got quite catchy, they're quite repetitive, but it's got some quite decent catchy music. And some of the later stages where you've got to go from stage to stage to stage will take kind of like 20 minutes to get through all of it, and you've got to keep hitting these checkpoints and these times, and you get really kind of in the zone of seeing what's coming up, and got very quick kind of last minute adjustments trying to dodge other vehicles. I just really enjoyed my time with it. And I think with all of these amazing AAA games that take 80 hours to beat and do all this stuff with, I think there's something to be said for every now and again. I mean, I beat this 100% in an evening. It's just, I think these little gems are sometimes just good to have a little palate cleanser, and not take too seriously, and just have a bit of fun with. Like I said, I don't know exactly how much it is, but it's a few quid. It's a few quid or a few dollars. It's not exactly an expensive game, but I had a really good time with it. And I've played lots of little arcade games like this. This is the only one quite this small to make it onto this list, and it might not be for everyone, but I'd say just give it a go and see what you think. I had a great time with it. Next up, we're moving away from that somewhat. We're going back to kind of the AA, AAA. So I actually have this a physical copy, and that is Project Cars 2. I say this is Project Cars 2. The one I'd actually recommend more is Project Cars 1, the first one, but I only have that digital, so I've got this to show. This is really good as well, but for me, they may have patched it all now. I picked this up on release. This was a bit buggy and a bit glitchy, so it put me off it a bit, but I'm assuming as long as they were supporting it, they'll have patched it by now. But certainly the first Project Cars, I put dozens and dozens of hours into. And Project Cars is very similar. It's a sim-style racing game that's, I'd say, on an equivalent level in terms of level of sim as kind of Forza Motorsport. So it doesn't go as far as ones like Assetto Corsa and stuff, which I've tried and were just a bit too sim for me. They just got too frustrating. This is kind of Forza Motorsport level, where you've got to kind of brake and tune your car, and you've got to race as you would on a racetrack, pick your racing line and your brake points and things, but it's not kind of completely punishing. But this is a really, if you've played Forza Motorsport and you're looking for another game in that genre, kind of sim style, I'd say definitely give this a go if you haven't already. It's got a wide variety of cars. The career mode's really good. You can basically, each season you'll pick which discipline you want to do, and you'll work your way up through the ranks to unlock better and better cars. But you'll lock into a season, and you'll have it'll be like a league. You'll have all the other racers in that league, and you'll play through. The seasons change, but it's kind of 6 to 10 races, I think, normally. And then obviously, depending on how well you do in that season, you can then unlock higher grades of racing up to kind of like Le Mans cars, to unlock and progress and go from season to season. So each season is like 6 months or a year or something. I think you can fit 2 seasons in a year, but then you can also do side events, kind of specialty events on the side where you're racing different cars and stuff, just like individual events, to build your rep. And then you move through like that, and you start, if you can pick where you start, I think, but you can start right at the beginning in karting, which is what I did, and then you work your way through and up. And that's one of the things I really like about this game, is the career mode. It's quite in depth and more realistic as it would be, I imagine, having not been a professional racing driver, but imagine it's kind of similar to how it would be in real life in terms of working your way through and having to pick each year what series you're going to take part in. Next up, we have another physical copy, and very different to sim. This is Onrush. So I have a video of this on my channel, just of gameplay, if you want to see more than I'm putting in this video. But this is a arcade combat racer. Very nice looking, some deep, really good music going through it. It's very energetic. But basically the idea is you're racing, but it's different to most racing games, and you're not racing to cross a finish line. So it's not about being at the front and winning by crossing the finish line first. You're racing as part of a team, and you have to score the most points for your team as part of your team to win. And it depends on what mode you're in, but you'll score points by kind of taking out opponents and things. But some of them, there'll be like a ring on the track that moves around, like a big ring that you can fit cars in, and you've got to have more of your team's cars in there than the opponents to score. And this will obviously be going really fast. You'll all be racing around it. And there are ones where you've got to get to checkpoints and things first, but as part of a team, and the whole kind of base of it is through combat. So by taking out your opponents, you'll build boost by kind of taking out your opponents, and which will allow you to do kind of specials and things like that as well. You'll see from the gameplay that I put up. Yeah, but it's a really fun, competent arcade racer. there's a reasonable amount of vehicles you can choose from, so you can be quite light, agile and nimble on like a bike or a smaller car, which means you can turn more easily and kind of weave in and out of people and get to the kind of a hill, or you can just be like a big bulky vehicle that can take people out easier, but obviously is a bit less agile. But yeah, definitely one that I would recommend. Next we have Split Second. So this is an Xbox 360 game, but as I said, these are all playable backwards compatible through the Series X, which is how I played this. I don't have this physically. It was on sale one day, or it might have been Games of Gold. I'm not sure how I got it, but I have it. It's in my library. And this is again an arcade racer, kind of in the style of like Burnout or something, but it's not open world. You have kind of set races, but the mechanic with this one is you can impact the environment at the push of a button. So you'll build kind of, I don't know what they call it, but a power meter basically by doing drifts and drafting behind cars and things. And when you want to, you can use this power meter, press the button, and something will happen ahead of you within the world to take out the other cars. But you can also take yourself out if you're not careful. So for example, you could have a few cars in front of you that you're following, and you've got power meter, and you push it, and this crane with like a big shipping container will swing out across the road and like take out those cars and then allow you to get through and overtake them. And there's all of these kind of things going on through every race constantly. So you've got to be careful that you're not taken out by this as well. So you could be driving along and suddenly this kind of bridge falls in front of you, and you either haven't got time and you crash, or you can kind of take evasive action and try and swing round. And I really like this mechanic. It's not something I've seen to that extent in a racing game before, and it really mixes it up. It's not just, so you're not just racing, you've got to be on your toes at all times and think tactically about when best to use your kind of power boost and things. And there's bigger ones which will, like Levolution wise, which will completely change the track. So there's not normally that many laps, like 3 to 5 laps of a circuit, but it will usually be that by the third lap the route, the track is very different to it was on your first lap, because things are broken, or a building's opened up, or a bridge, an overhead bridge has fallen down and created a jump that cuts a corner or something like that. But yeah, really enjoyed my time with this game. This is one I definitely want to get back to. I'm about halfway through it, but everything I've played so far I've really liked, so I definitely need to go back and finish it. And now we have another Xbox 360 game, and that is Sonic and All-Stars Racing Transformed. So this I never would have played, because it just looked like a kind of licensed tie-in, just kind of playing off the Sonic name to make a kart racer, and I thought it was just a cash grab. But it's one of these games that I have free somehow, Games of Gold or something, and I was craving a kart racer. Obviously we don't have Mario Kart or anything on the Xbox. My brother had a Switch, and I'd been to visit him and he was showing me the new Mario Kart, and I was like, oh, I kind of really want to play a kart game now. So I just looked, and this was on my games library. So I downloaded it, but not with too much expectations. And it's a great game. It's a really, really well made kart racing game. I'd say not quite as good as Mario Kart, but not far off. I think it's a very adept kart racing game. It ticks all the boxes. It handles really well. The drift mechanics feel really good and like you're in control. You've got your usual, obviously they're all based in the Sonic world, so they're different to Mario Kart, but you've got all your weapons and your boosts and your defensive things, so you've got to think tactically about when to use them and what weapons to use and which ones to hold and things. The tracks are all really well designed. I've played through a large portion of the game, and pretty much all of the tracks I really like. They've got great kind of variety in terms of how the levels look and the environments and things, but also you won't always be in a physical kart. You'll switch to a plane at times, you'll switch to a boat at times, and this will happen mid-race, midway through the lap. You'll transform into a different vehicle, and it just kind of changes up how everything plays. And it's just a really well made kart racer, which I never expected. So if you are looking for a kart racer on the Xbox, I would pick this one up immediately. And for those that, I'm not really a Sonic fan, I've picked up kind of the old school Sonic games and played through a few levels, but I've never been a Sonic fan. I've never beaten any of the games. So if you're a Sonic fan as well, I'd say this is going to tick even more boxes for you. So yeah, pick it up. So now we have, so I was saying that you can only have one game from each game series. So I haven't gone back, I could go back further to the Xbox 360. I've got a few, up here, Need for Speed games on the Xbox 360, but I actually haven't played most of them. I'm going to play them at some point. But I've played most of the Need for Speed games on the Xbox One, and I think this is quite an unpopular choice. But this is the Need for Speed, kind of the reboot in 2015. And this is the one where they had kind of live action throughout to kind of portray the story that a lot of people thought was kind of quite cringy and didn't work that well. But I actually thought it worked well, and I kind of got quite into the characters and enjoyed the game. And the other knock at it was that it was always nighttime. But again, I thought I wouldn't like that going in, but I actually did quite enjoy it, and it got me in that mindset of kind of, you're an underground racer. You don't really see kind of underground kind of races and things in real life going on during the day, do you, on the school run? It's it's normally kind of at night, so it kind of gave it a bit of that authenticity. But yeah, I really enjoyed my time with this game. It's the only Need for Speed that I've ever 100%ed. Did everything you could, apart from the DLC. Some of the DLC challenges are just impossible. I gave up on them. But everything in the base game, 1,000 gamer score. I actually went back to get some gameplay footage, and I'd lost it, or I couldn't drive in this game anymore. But I remember when I was driving in it, when I was playing it, the drift mechanics felt so good once you got used to them and once you tuned your car, that I just loved drifting on all the side roads, going up kind of up the mountains and things. And there's huge sections of road you connect together here for drifting. And obviously, being a Need for Speed game, drifting comes into quite a lot of the races and events you're doing and things. And just a very well made Need for Speed game. I don't think it reviewed that well, but I think it's a very underrated game. I've enjoyed all the other Need for Speeds as well. I mean, they always kind of don't get great reviews now, do they? I think everyone's like, oh, the Need for Speed magic has gone. But I think they're all worth playing. I've been playing the last few. I haven't played the new one, the Need for Speed Unbound, yet. I'll wait for it to come onto kind of the EA Game Pass thing and play it on there. But no, I had a good time with it, and I definitely think it's worth playing through. And just embrace the cheesy live action. It's you can't go into it expecting kind of Oscar-worthy performances. Just enjoy it for what it is. Next up, so I have a physical copy of this, but it is on Xbox. Bit of a cop-out having a PlayStation 4 copy. But the reason for this is there isn't a physical version on the Xbox, and I played it. Again, really enjoyed it, and really wanted a physical copy to support the developers, and the only place I could get it that I have a console for was the PS4. It's also on Switch, but I don't have a Switch. So this is, as you can see, Hotshot Racing. Another very arcadey style game. Not huge in terms of content, but this one's, you can see from the gameplay that I put up, or a trailer or something, that it's all about drifting again. It's very close-knit racing. It's quite a difficult game. Even putting the AI on just normal, like not putting it up to hard, it's quite a challenging racer in terms of their ability. And then putting it up to hard, because I was trying to go through and get all the achievements, it's a challenging game. But it's one of those games that you do really get in the zone. You get used to how each car handles and when to do the drifts, and like exactly when to start your drift to get the maximum boost coming out of the side. And it's a very tight, competent racer. In terms of like the arcade games, this is probably one of my favourite in terms of how it handles, like the physics of the racing. It feels really smooth and really enjoyable to play. And there's a decent variety of maps and tracks and characters, drivers that you can drive as and kind of unlock. And I really like the art style of it. It's this kind of beautifully done, cel shaded graphics that really work in this environment. I think this is all about the feel of the racing and the movement around through the drifts and things. It doesn't need to be kind of 4K kind of pixel perfect kind of realistic graphics. I think the art style they've gone for here really works, and it allows that frame rate to get bumped up so it feels kind of buttery smooth as you're going. But yeah, great game. Alright, and now we have Riders Republic. So this is a Ubisoft game that came out last year, or maybe the year before. This is an extreme sports game, so you've got skiing, mountain biking, snowboarding, paragliding, jetpacking, kind of all kinds of stuff going on in here. And again, it's one of these where the map, similar to I haven't got a physical, but the Crew 2 is a Ubisoft game as well. They're really good at making big open world maps to explore. So this is just one big open world map that is made up of a tapestry, basically, of US national parks. So you've got kind of the Grand Canyon and Bryce Canyon and Yosemite and all these things kind of stitched together in the world. So as you're racing around, you'll be racing and see these kind of famous kind of landscapes and things as you're going. So you've got that down low for your mountain biking and those events, and then it transforms into snowy mountains, so where your skiing and your snowboarding is, and you can race all over the place wherever you want. So it's got that open world aspect where you're just free to go wherever you want, and then you've got the actual races, which are, well, you've got trick ones and point ones and a few different types. But the thing I loved most about this game, so you get it in the single player, that if you're entering just a solo race by yourself, you can have up to kind of like 10 AI opponents, and that's really fun, like racing, whether you're on skis or mountain bike or something, racing down the mountain. But the best part about this game is the PvP, and they have big events that come on like every half an hour, so you have to wait around sometimes for them to start. But they're up to 60 people, and they're multi-discipline races. So you'll start at the top of the mountain, like 60 of you, and everyone's obviously got their costumes and all this stuff, and then you'll just start bombing it down the mountain, and you'll either start on a mountain bike or skis or something, and at some point you'll go over a jump or something and transition into a flying kind of discipline, like jetpacks or something, and then you'll come down into another discipline, and it's just chaos. There's just, because there's so many people everywhere crashing and bailing and going all over the place, and it's so much fun. It's so much. I've never managed to win one because there's some people that are just crazy good, but it's an absolute laugh. It's brilliant. So yeah, if you have been looking for an extreme sports game, and this covers all of them, so skiing, snowboarding, mountain biking, all of the core extreme sports, then I'd recommend giving it a go. I imagine this is not very much at all now, and I imagine the big races are still going, because it's only been like a year or two since the game came out, so I imagine they are still going. But even if they're not, I mean, the majority of my time I spent just playing through the solo stuff and was having a great time. Now we're back to more of the sim genre, or very much the sim genre, in F1 2021. So you could also put 2020, 2019, 2018 into this. They're all quite similar, but they keep adding things as they go. But 2021 is, due to the fact that they've been adding features as they go, the best one that I've played so far. And you can create your own team now in this, which I really like. So you can design your car, start from scratch, and name your team whatever you want, and then you are the new team on the block. And I named my team Monster, so like Monster Energy, to compete with Red Bull. I'm very clever, I know. But the racing in this is almost perfect. It feels so good. The physics are incredible. If you're an F1 fan, then it's got all the tracks in there. It's got all the racers, all the drivers to race against. You'll have a great time. Like, you probably already playing this game if you're an F1 fan. But even if you're not, I think but you enjoy racing games, you just pick it up. You don't have to be an F1 fan to enjoy this. It's got a lot of the tracks, and a lot of these tracks and things are in like Gran Turismo and Forza and that type of thing, because they're famous race tracks. So you'll be familiar with a lot of them anyway. And the racing is just on point. If you can dial in the difficulty of the AI, you can have some amazing races, like really good races. If you want to, you can just put the difficulty down and just win every race. But I prefer to have it so it's quite close. And yeah, I've had some of the best races against AI that I've had in any game, any racing game ever in this game. Just kind of, whether it's battling for my first point for my team, trying to get 10th, or kind of battling for my first podium, or kind of going on to get the win. All the races are really close. I've had a couple where, now that my car's improved a bit, where I've been kind of 10 seconds ahead, but none where you're kind of lapping second place. It's always quite close. So yeah, in terms of pure racing, this is some of the best racing I've ever experienced in a game, so can't recommend it enough. Right, I haven't really been saying the numbers as we go along because they kind of could be put in any order, but this is now the top 3. I'm sure you can guess what 2 of them are, being Xbox racing list, but the third one will probably surprise a lot of people, and that is The Art of Rally. So this is a little indie game that, again, like quite a few of the ones on this list, came out of nowhere for me. It was on Game Pass. I saw it on Game Pass and I watched just some gameplay footage of it and I thought it looked really interesting. So started playing it and got hooked. Absolutely hooked. So from the gameplay that I'm showing, it probably doesn't look like that much. But again, it's one of these with driving games. It doesn't matter whether it's kind of top-down, arcadey or sim. If you nail that driving mechanic, the feel of going around corners or drifting or just the feel of driving, then it doesn't really matter what everything else looks like. It's just that gameplay experience. And this nails that feeling of kind of driving. And I think it looks pretty good as well. I love the art style of this. In terms of working with the budget that they've got available to them, I think they've done an amazing job. But yeah, as you can see, it's like a top-down kind of isometric rally game, and it's got quite a lot of depth to it actually in terms of the difficulty, in terms of improvement. When I first started at this game, to how I was at the end was kind of night and day, and I went back to some of the earlier courses at the end and was absolutely obliterating my times. So it's not much of a barrier to entry because the controls are quite simple, but there's a huge room for improvement as you're going through. And basically, yeah, you race through championships, you unlock loads of different cars as you're going through, which have different stats and things, and the variety of courses and environments you go through is quite good as well, from the start to the end. And it's got a decent little campaign that'll keep you going, and it's got a lot of content actually. I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it at least kind of 15 hours I think to kind of beat this game, so it's got a lot of content in there to keep you going, so it's worth it even if it's kind of 20 quid. I don't know what it is now, but I imagine it's around kind of £20. So, but if this looks like at all the kind of game that you're interested in, I'd say just go for it, because the actual mechanics of the driving they've completely nailed. And then finally we're to the top 2, and then there probably won't be any surprise here. So these could go in any order, but I'm going to put in number 2, not that it really matters, but Forza Horizon. So I'd actually say Forza Horizon 4, but this is the only one I have physically. I've got Forza Horizon 4 and 5 through Game Pass, so digitally. But any of the Forza Horizons really, they're all incredible. So for those that don't know, it's their open world racing games, arcade racing games set in different environments. So Forza Horizon 3 is in Australia, Forza Horizon 4 is in the UK, and Forza Horizon 5, the most recent one, is set in Mexico. And I've recently got back into the Horizons because I've just played through the second DLC for Forza Horizon 5, which is the Rally DLC, and I've put a review out of that on the channel. I'll put a link to that up here somewhere if anyone's interested. But they've been really refining this package over the kind of past, well, decade now, and yeah, I don't think you can get a better arcade racing game than these. The amount of content in them is unbelievable. The feel of the racing is perfect, almost. I mean, I don't know how you would improve it. To me, it feels incredible. You can really tell that the surfaces you're driving on, when you go from tarmac to dirt to kind of sand, you feel the difference. There's 500, I don't think that's even an exaggeration, I think there are 500 cars minimum in each of them. So any brand, make, model of car that you're kind of looking for, you'll be able to find it or something similar. There's customization, there's a huge variety of races, so you can be racing cross country and kind of big pickup trucks and things, and kind of dune buggies, or you can do road racing and kind of get more into kind of street racing and that type of thing. Just the amount of content is unbelievable. The set pieces are incredible. So you'll do set piece races where you'll be racing like a train or a plane or people on mountain bikes or anything. It's just every game has a few set piece races that are just really fun to play through, and the online is incredible as well. So you can jump in and race people online and do different events, and just all round some of the best racing games that you can get. If you are on Xbox and you haven't played them, 5, I'm not sure if 4, I assume 4 is as well, but you can play them on Game Pass. So if you're a Game Pass subscriber and you haven't played them, you've got nothing to lose. And I think these are almost the perfect game to try if you're not a huge racing fan. You're probably not going to be watching this video if you're not a racing fan, but maybe you are. So yeah, if you're not, especially if you're not a fan of sim racers, give this a go, because this is not sim racing, this is arcade racing, and it's a perfect entry, I think. I've got quite a few friends that aren't big racing fans, but they love the Forza Horizon games. So yeah, give it a go. And then, no surprise at all, so I'm definitely counting this as a different series, is the Forza Motorsport series. Yeah, so these are obviously both the Forza series, but they are very different. This is a sim racing on kind of circuit racing, and they're made by different studios now as well. But I've got Forza 6 here. I've played through Forza 7 and Forza 5. I've played through all of them. Forza 6 I think is the best so far, because it's got the modern day graphic. Well, Xbox One last gen, but there hasn't been one on the current gen yet. It's got the modern day graphics, but I think Forza 6 for me edges out Forza 7. Forza 7 just went a little bit too far down kind of monetization and that type of thing, and I think Forza 6 is slightly better than Forza 7. But you can't go wrong. I mean, Forza 7 I've still played all the way through and done almost everything. The racing is still just as good, and that's the main thing, isn't it? So yeah, these are sim racing, huge variety of tracks, huge variety of cars, career modes and things that you play through, and just some of the best sim racing experiences you can get. And the nice thing is, I say sim, they are sim, but I know there's lots of people that would consider these arcade races. The people that play the hardcore sim racings, these are not that. These are approachable sim races, which is nice, where you still feel you're having an impact and you still have to drive correctly, and you can still tune your cars and upgrade them and change components and things, but they're a little bit more forgiving than some of the real hardcore sim races. But yeah, hours and hours and hours and hours of entertainment. Like I say, the same as the Horizon games, is like hundreds and hundreds of cars, really beautiful, stunning graphics. Every track is meticulously modelled. They go out, they visit every track and model them like precisely one-to-one. Same with all the cars and everything. And again, it's got, if you are someone that likes the online, it's got online racing and leagues and everything in that. Yeah, just really, really good. And the new one is supposed to be coming out this year. I've just the Redfall's just released, and yeah, it's bombed, hasn't it? So I'm just really hoping. I don't see how they've screwed Forza up, because they've never screwed a Forza game up. But then Arcane had never screwed a game up, had they? So I'm just hoping it's not Microsoft, it's not Xbox that's somehow screwing these studios up. But it's gone. They've said that they're just putting the finishing touches on it, so it should be coming out in the next couple of months, hopefully. So really looking forward to that, and I'll do a review of that when it comes out, I would have thought. But yeah, anyway, Forza Motorsport, my number one racing game on the Xbox, which is probably not a surprise to most people. But hopefully there's been lots of other suggestions, a wide variety of games in there for you to pick and choose from, and hopefully something that fits anybody's taste in racing games in there. If you've got any that you'd recommend that aren't in this list, let me know. I may well have played them, but I might not, so I'd really appreciate any comments. I love racing games, especially if someone's got any kind of little hidden gems, like those, like little arcade games that there's every chance that I would have just missed because there's so many on there to sift through. Please let me know, I'd really appreciate it. And if any of you have played any of these games, let me know your thoughts on them. So I hope that's helped some people pick out some racing games to play. Thank you for watching. Please do drop a like if you've enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing if you like. So, hope you have a good day, and on to the next one.